Anastasia Thompson is joining me in studio. She is the author of Always Anastasia, A Transgender Life in South Africa. She's here to unpack what we are going to find in her memoirs. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for sitting down with me. Now, the first thing that comes to everyone's mind, I think, what I think comes to everyone's mind from doing my internet research, from looking at the comments on posts about the book, is a lot of talk about Caitlyn Jenner when we talk about transgender. And I know everyone has their own opinion on Caitlyn Jenner. Do you think she's done the transgender community globally a service or a disservice?
It's a very difficult question to answer, and I always, every time I speak out or every time I'm interviewed, every time I talk about trans issues, I speak from my own experience.
Yeah.
And I always add that as a disclaimer. I say my experiences are not necessarily representative
Right.
of the entire trans community. And I think the same is very true of Caitlyn Jenner. So I'm quite happy for Caitlyn to go on and live her life and do what she wants to do. But I think that whenever someone has a position that makes them very visible, especially within a marginalized community, you have to understand that sometimes there's a responsibility that comes with that, just to be aware of what's going on elsewhere in the community.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in that position of privilege that you occupy, but the other people that are judged alongside you.
Well, you're here to introduce us to your story. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of what's in the book, talk me through the decision to sit down and write your memoir and share your story on a public scale.
Again, it wasn't like a flash of lightning or a bolt that just came to me and said, you have to write a book, that's your destiny. It was really just a culmination of factors. I had people who were close to me, people around me, friends and family, who were watching me change and transition and grow into myself and become more assertive and more confident and more comfortable in my own skin. And a lot of them would say to me, well, you're changing in so many ways, your body is changing, how are you keeping track of all of this? Then at the same time, I had what I sort of recognized a while ago was some degree of talent for writing, but I was very scared of putting my feelings and my thoughts down on paper because it makes everything very tangible and you kind of have to confront a lot of things. And as you'll know if you've read the book, I go back into my sort of distant past even and examine some events there that were really very formative and kind of shaped me into who I am. But at the same time, reflecting on them was rather painful. It wasn't an easy process to go through. So I kind of had to confront the necessity of doing that in order to get the story down on paper.
Was there any one instance that was particularly difficult for you to write about, or one situation that was difficult for you to confront?
I think there were a couple of chapters in this book, and as I was writing it, because I've kind of picked out different interactions, different events, different occurrences that sort of highlight points that I want to make about my experiences being trans. And I had an idea when I was sort of planning the outline, this event that happened, this interaction was important and I need to discuss it. And there were some that it was easy to just sit down and hammer it out, and the sort of events that I had been able to, I think, process at the time in a very sort of straightforward way. And sure, I might put a bit of a poignant spin on it, like there's a chapter about going to the cryobank. That was an easy one to write because there wasn't that much emotional investment in it. Some of those chapters, especially the ones that I think come from pre-transition, I had an idea that to sit down and write this is going to be taxing. And I did. I put some of them off until I had mustered sufficient emotional energy to sit down and confront not just the events, but all of the feelings that come with it.
Now you mentioned the people in your lives, and there's two specific people I want to chat about. There are two instances in the book. One when you sit down to tell your brother about the experience you're going through, and he's actually the last person that you told. What was that like for you, reliving that situation?
Yeah, so I had a lot of conflict over how to come out to my brother because historically I had so much respect for him, and I always looked up to him, and he always tried to take care of me and be there for me. And I was left with this dilemma where a lot of close friends and family, he wasn't the last person I told, but he was the last, I would say, important person who I told.
Yeah.
The last person who was really close to me. And I had this dilemma because here I was confronting this painful reality and this dynamic process that was occurring already. Living my life in Joburg with my brother 1,500 kilometers away in Cape Town.
Yeah.
And when it's someone who is that important to you and that close to you, you have the question of, how do I disclose this? You know, do I send you a WhatsApp and say, you know, I understand that you thought you had a brother, but that's not quite how this works. It was very difficult, and I really wanted to do it face to face, and it was hard to coordinate that. I mean, at the time that this was happening, there was a huge wildfire on the mountain, and he was living close by, and they just moved homes. It was really difficult to coordinate. I wanted to fly down here the very next weekend and just say, you know, let's talk this out, and I couldn't do that. And I think the flip side of that was that he probably felt I should have told him sooner.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how to do it, and I didn't know the best way to do it. So that was very difficult to reconcile.